The Hustle Share podcast is sponsored by Lark, the leading super app for work in Southeast Asia. Frustrated with juggling and paying for multiple tools for work? Hate mixing personal and business messages? Improve your team's productivity by 10 times with Lark, which combines business chat, email, video conferencing, calendar, project management, real-time translation, and much more into one super app. Trusted by companies like Xiaomi, Glints, Kumu, and Mamaluz. Get it for free at larksuite.com today. The Hustle Share podcast is sponsored by One CFO, the Philippines' leading fractional CFO services provider for startups, scale-ups, and SMEs. Experience the power of tech-enabled, efficient, affordable, and expert-led fractional CFO services. Let One CFO handle your finances so you can focus on growing your business. Book your free CFO consultation today.
And I think the first thing in crisis management is acknowledging that the world is going to shit. Right? You can't sugarcoat it. Sugarcoat it. And I think that's where the resilience of the team comes in, because you have to tell it as it is. Sometimes you have to paint a worse picture so that there's a sense of urgency.
Welcome to Hustle Share, the podcast that features the daily grinds of unique hustlers around the world to show not our differences, but that our hustles are very much alike. Now here's your host, Ronster Baetiong.
Welcome to this episode of the Hustle Share podcast. We have one of the best AI companies here in the Philippines up on this episode. And I recently found out about them when I talked about advanced AI in the Daily Scrum, my daily podcast that talks about like the roundup of the tech news in Southeast Asia. It's like, oh, I thought it was the same company as this, Advanced by Anton and Addy. It's like, wait, it's different because this is seed. And when you guys raise seed and you're trying to create a credit bureau in the Philippines, I was like, man, I got to have these guys. And thank you, because they responded very, very quickly. So again, without further ado, let's welcome the country manager of Advanced AI, Mr. Mike Kama. Whoop, whoop. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Ron. I told you earlier, right? I'm a long-time listener, first-time caller.
There you go. Thank you again. Everybody that's legit will eventually find this way. Unfortunately, I have to space them out. Because if I got all of you all of you great guys here, then what the hell am I going to talk about now? Right? There's just a matter of time. So thank you. I'm glad you're here, and thank you for listening for the longest time. But if you've been listening, you know the drill. Because I'm going to have to ask you the $1 million question. Mike, what's your hustle?
Ron, our hustle is providing technology towards financial inclusion. Now, there are two main areas to this: identity risk management and credit risk management. So I'll deep dive in greater detail as we go.
Yes. And again, I just recently got into a rabbit hole about this, because one of the things that I regret the most when I was in my 20s, being an entrepreneur, I really didn't take good care of my own credit, my personal credit. It's like, whatever, it's fine. There's nothing. I'm not going to pay on time. Disregarded my credit card payments. And a lot of those are now haunting me in my 30s when I need access to those. And that goes both ways, not just from the consumer companies, but also, consumers that need credit, but also on the companies that deploy credit or need access to credit, as I interviewed here. Yeah. So this is a lifelong need for everyone, whether B2B, B2C. And I love that you guys are solving this.
Absolutely. Especially here in the Philippines, right? I think there are a lot of segments, and I could really relate to your experience. In that, I also experienced that.
YOLO,
not immune. We didn't learn financial education or personal finance in school.
Nope.
And we thought that when we borrow from large institutions, they're too big to fail.
Exactly.
Hindi natin alam na apektuhan na pala yung credit history natin. And
correct. Right. So it's something that haunts you.
Yes.
You think that like, oh, it's just like I borrowed from a friend, I forgot to pay. No, it does not work that way, right?
Indeed.
And we will obviously do a deep dive on that. But before we do a deep dive on what credit and what you guys do at the Advanced AI group per se, I need you to buckle up real quick because your background's very interesting. You're intergalactic, and we're gonna have to go to a different timeline and go all the way back to discuss how you started your hustle. Because we're gonna have to ride the Hustle Share Time Machine. Boom. And we are back from the origin story. So, Mike, I always have an affinity to homegrown Pinoys like you. But what was it like growing up, and what was your first exposure to hustling that you remember?
Well, I grew up in Limay, Bataan.
Limay, Bataan. The episode that I had before you is Rene Cortero. He's from Dinalupihan. So I don't know what it is that I'm getting with the whole Bataan. But one thing about the Bataan peeps is you never quit. You're the last one to be surrendered. Okay?
Exactly right, di ba?
Wag isuko ang Bataan.
Iwan na tayo ng Americans tapos nagkaroon ng Bataan Death March.
Yan. Okay.
We are a resilient bunch.
Yep. And you don't quit. I like it. But I want to understand, what was it like growing up in Limay, Bataan, and what was your first exposures to hustling?
Okay. Well, like many other Filipinos, I was the son of an OFW. Right? So we saw the contrast of having an OFW. My father spent more than a decade in Saudi Arabia as an engineer.
Wow.
Right? And of course, he earns more than what he earns in the Philippines.
Of course.
So we felt then that we were very lucky, even though my father was away, in that we could afford things that before we cannot afford.
Yes.
And then that dovetails into the credit thing later. In that if you don't have that OFW in the family, most likely you will borrow.
Yeah.
There. So what was it like growing up? So I think my parents really hustled hard to give a good life to us, give us a good education. But what I observed is that Bataan then was really a province. No? There was a contrast between what was available in Bataan and what was available in Manila.
Correct.
In Manila, we only go to Manila every so often, like before Christmas, to shop a bit, pasyal. And then if we were gonna fetch my father from the airport.
Terminal 1 pa.
Terminal 1 lang nun. Terminal 1 lang. So despite that, I think that upbringing in Bataan gave me some perspective on the difference between rural living and urban living. And later that will dovetail into the credit as well as technology discussion.
Yep.
And I think it gave me an early realization of the value of hard work. So now to my early hustle.
Yeah.
Before, right, my first hustle was buying and selling toys.
Okay, nice. From where?
So, kasi, di ba nga, my dad was an OFW. So, papabili ako ng toys sa kanya.
Nice.
Tapos, sasabihin ko sa mga friends ko, uy, ganito yung price nito. Talaga, pero for you, my best friend, ganito na lang. There. I didn't have a concept of cost back then. And then the business sense. But I think that was my first foray into hustling. Until fast forward, before I graduated in computer science from UP Los Baños, that I actually became a racket scientist. R-A-K-E-T.
Racketero.
So from buying and selling toys very early on, when I was a kid, fast forward to college, yun na naging totoo kong racket.
What was the rackets that you remember doing?
Well, first was very simple. I did a lot of programming work for other students who didn't like programming.
Yep.
So as the coder back then. And then I kind of surprised myself when I started getting projects from small companies, not only in the Philippines, but also abroad in the US.
Wow.
The OGs will recall that, I don't know if it's still alive. There was this portal before called Elance.
Yep, Elance.
Then Elance
predates Odesk or Kasabayan around the same time.
Indeed. So ngayon, meron ng Fiverr and all of those other platforms. But Elance was the OG of job boards before. So I started getting a bit of work there.
Nice.
Then before I realized it, it was becoming too overwhelming for just one programmer, myself, to do all the work.
Okay.
So I didn't know anything about business. I hired my classmates back then. So these are the OG guys that you might want to get in touch as well.
Okay.
They have their cybersecurity shop, Red Rock Consulting.
Red Rock.
Yes,
There's not a lot of them out here, by the way. So
exactly.
I'd love
to. I believe, and I truly believe that they're the best because they've won several international contests, and they're very, very well known in the cybersecurity industry. So my first partners in business was Raymond Nunez and Paul Prantilla.
Okay, we'll have you here one day. Very soon. Okay, sounds good. Yeah. So as a dev, right? I'm very, very curious. We're gonna go into a bit of a rabbit hole here because early 2000s dev, you don't have the ability to just learn programming and go to YouTube and watch one random Indian to understand it. You don't even have GitHub and copy paste, or you can have all these repositories, or you can copy paste code. And you don't even have a Copilot in ChatGPT now. It's super Daya now, right? Like you have to really code. If you don't know how to code, you are messed up. How were you able to learn the code needed for all these specs that your clients needed out?
Well, in the olden days, this was in early 2000s, as you mentioned, we had to rely on two things, books and CBTs. High-tech na yung CBT nun.
Yep.
For those who are younger and do not know, CBT is computer-based training. In CDs, you use CD-ROMs to be able to see code examples, text, code repository, etc. And if you're lucky, may mga videos then, but later on. So that's how we learn how to code. Not to claim that the new breed of programmers are mahinang klase. I think they could do more now.
Yeah.
Because of all these tools, they could be more creative. They could build more complex systems.
Yep.
As compared to us before, basic PHP sites lang ginagawa namin.
Yep. But hey, the money's there because the supply also. I mean, I think there's still much more demand versus supply still, but way less supply back then, right? And
exactly.
the talent isn't there. So I have so much respect for OGs like you who literally had to study the fundamentals from each line of code that you wrote.
For sure. And I think even though I don't code anymore, I'd like to say I wasn't really that good in coding. The coding discipline gave me the frameworks to think about life in general and business.
Correct.
It gave you that discipline. And fast forward to several years after. Well, I spent 7 years as a rocket scientist.
Nice.
Right? And then I realized...
a lot of rockets.
Lots of rockets, for sure. Not all profitable, right? And then I realized that I needed to know more about about business.
Okay.
So that's when I took my master's in UP, Diliman. I took my MBA. The funny thing was, I was recruited out of MBA, and then I got addicted in the monthly paycheck. Nakaka-addict pala.
Okay. No, because you came from 7 years of being a founder where you have to really hustle and make sure that everybody gets to eat. Okay, and you here after MBA, there's this very addictive thing called a 1530 check. Ayan. Okay.
Yeah. Tapos may bonus pa. May bonus at commissions pa. So, I mean, not that I'm regretting it. I think corporate life starting in 2008 gave me the perspective and the frameworks on how to run businesses at scale. So I'm very thankful for the first company who hired me before, NEC, a Japanese company.
Oh, wow.
I spent 7 years there, then 12 years total, working as an executive in systems integrations and technology companies. So after NEC, I moved to MDI, local systems integrator, and then to NTT, back to large Japanese multinational.
Got it.
And all in all, that was 12 years until the next phase of my career where I felt that I needed to go back to my startup roots. Bumalik ako sa startup scene.
Nice.
But gradually as an employee.
Okay, but I want to understand muna the things, because I always, hindsight being 2020, I'm one of those stupid idiots that went fresh grad, tried it, 0 to 1 founder, like what you did. Worked in startups, not corporate, startups. I worked for Groupon. You know, okay na to. Let's go back. And my God, did I not know that I still have so much to learn. Hindsight being 2020, I learned naman. But it cost me so much money. I messed up my credit because I'm always broke. You know, all these things. But hindsight being 2020, I would have probably taken a few more corporate jobs to get two things. Number one, to obviously get the right skills. Because if you always wanted to be a founder and you feel like you're not ready, don't jump agad. You can get paid and get the necessary training that you need from the right companies as long as you're intentional about it. And actually, it will never leave you, the good stuff. Just don't drink the Kool-Aid too much to the point that you have to be intentional that, okay, I'm doing this because I want to get these types of skills. Because it's hard to do it 0 to 1, especially if you're coming from here. Because now I'm exposed to all these Ivy Leaguers, these guys who was like, what? How the hell? They have a different lens. Us locals, it's different. And you need to be able to get that exposure to fully understand that, we're such in a small pond that you need a bigger, wide open perspective. And that's what I want to zoom in. NEC, the Japanese is notorious for being very, very, very detail oriented. Yes. And they work hard, super hard. 100%. I want to understand two things. What are the hard skills and the soft skills you acquired in that stint in NEC?
Hard skills. Actually, it will be both. The Japanese have this term. It's called nemawashi. Nemawashi. Yes, there's no direct translation. But the closest one I would reckon is complete staff work in English. Complete staff work, meaning that from bottom up, top bottom, you did your due diligence very thoroughly. So that the people at the top could make the right decision. Now, that was frustrating at the start, coming from the startup scene. I was thinking, it was harder to sell internally to my bosses than selling to the customer.
Yeah.
But it gave me a structure and a concept of risk management. Diyan pinakamahusay, I think, yung Japanese. It's frustrating. They have a very long decision cycle, but they know how to do their risk management well.
Yeah.
And so, okay, now let's branch into the hard skills first. Hard skills, of course. I was able to really use my MBA education because they needed ROI computations for each project.
Perfect.
Right? And I was really able to put into context what I learned in computer science in that I started as a solutions architect. I headed the solutions architecture team with 2 people under me. And that gave me a first real job where I could apply what I learned in college as well as in MBA, because you mix the technology with the business skills.
Right.
So I think in a nutshell, that's what I learned from NEC. And I enjoyed it too much or so much that I spent 7 years. Sabi ko, temporary lang to. I'm gonna go back to my startup roots.
Yep. No, but again,
that didn't happen.
You took as much time, but also great things take time. Because if you probably didn't spend enough time with it, you wouldn't have mastered it. And mastery takes so much effort and time in order to do it. Because had you done it so quickly, you would have gotten fundamentals, but you weren't put enough in a pressure cooker for you to be perfectly broiled, per se.
Exactly right. You put it very well. Perfectly broiled.
Because I'm hungry right now. I want the broiled chicken. No, but okay, so great. I love the combi now because that's why it's such a killer combo. When you come, I have so much respect for those people who come from a tech point of view, whether it's coding, product management, and you add a layer of business acumen to it. Dude, that's a killer combo because majority of the time they're polarized. They don't get along well together. In a different like business or marketing or sales, hate tech hates the same. But if you're a perfect mashup of both, you see things in such a different lens that both can empathize. And that's what I want to know on the soft skill side. Because it's all of these hard skills won't work and won't translate. And you won't last 7 years if you didn't develop the right soft skills also along the way. What were those?
Well, I think you alluded to that because there are natural conflicts between departments.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. For us customer-facing people at the time, we really advocated what the customer wanted, right? But correct. You will have a natural conflict with finance in that, hey, Mike, yung discount mo masyadong mataas na. Masyado kang soft. But they're doing their jobs in that they need to ensure that the company is profitable.
Yeah.
Right. And compliance is also there to make sure that you are not violating any laws or regulations. So going back to the soft skills, it's about what you mentioned earlier, empathy. Knowing what the KPIs are of the other department and how you are able to harmonize that with yours, right? The conflicts are natural, and I'd like to say they are needed. We need really hard conversations within the organization, but we could do it in a way where the discussion is constructive. We've all seen this. Especially in startups, that the arguments are not constructive. They only make us all feel bad. So I think that's the number one hard skills.
Yep.
You want to go into an argument with a wider perspective and get your emotions out of the conversation.
Yeah.
So yun yung number one soft skills. I think that's the central one where a lot of smaller tactical things can branch out from. Empathy is at the center of that mind map.
Totally understand. And that's a skill that if you master, I don't care where you end up in life, putting yourself in the position of others so that you can get their buy-in and the walls that they build are down so you can work in harmony because everybody has an agenda. But if you know their perspective and you can work together, I don't care where you end up. You'll always find a way to empathize with people because at the end of the day, it's people that propel things forward. Exactly. And in a business like this, it's a team sport. I don't care how good you are, but if you can get people to root for you and work with you, 100%, sorry, you're going to be a pariah. And you're going to be one of those people that people respect that they hate working.
For sure. You know what comes to mind, and I only learned this, quite recently, but it put a framework to that empathy thing.
Okay.
One of my idols is Simon Sinek.
Yes.
And then he mentioned he consulted with the Navy SEALs. What do you look for in a Team SEAL 6 member? And then they drew a graph. One axis was competence or performance. The other axis was trust.
Oh.
Right. So the ideal Team SEAL 6 soldier is high trust, high performance. But that's really hard to come by. Right?
Yeah.
Really hard to come by. So they prefer soldiers that are high trust, medium performance, even low performance. At least you trust the person and their heart is in the right place. As compared to a soldier or a teammate that is high performance, low trust. You don't want that asshole in your team.
No, that's a Chuck Norris. That's what they'll end up. Chuck Norris going or FPJ solo, and they're gonna end up killing
exactly right.
Because this is life in a Navy SEAL environment. You're in charge of carrying two things by default that you cannot fail. Number one, you need to accomplish the mission. And number two, you need to walk out of that mission alive.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So trust is the key. I love that analogy. My last question before we take our first break. So after you did NEC, you did a couple more stints. But what made you start scratching the itch ulit? You mentioned you wanted to go back to startup. When did you feel that? Okay, was that a point where like shit? If I didn't go out now, I'm stuck here forever, and the addictive salary is gonna be and the thrill of going 0 to 1 is I'm gonna chill na. Like I don't want to go back, or was it something different that really tugged your heart to like, hey, I want to go back to my roots?
Yeah, it wasn't a single moment that led me to consider working for a startup again.
Okay.
I think it's a collection of experiences. One question that came to mind was that, hey, I'm working hard anyway. If, for example, I apply this kind of effort into a high growth company, maybe I could have more impact, right? And by having more impact, of course, I have a growing family, and so I might be able to be a better provider. What's unique this time is that I said, okay, I'm still a bit nervous to become a founder, and I admire founders like yourself who took that leap, because ito iniisip
I regret it eh. Why did I do it?
When you get addicted to that paycheck and then you have a family already, it's harder to make that leap.
Yep.
So I said, okay, given that, I will entertain companies that are in that stage and are in need of someone entrepreneurial, right, to hire. So yun yung next step.
I love it.
And then, just like when I changed that mindset, it was like a real blessing in that a new company, which is a joint venture between the Aboitiz Group and an Australian private equity firm, reached out, said, Mike, are you interested in leading a company here that will focus on IT training and certification plus consulting? And then
Perfect
I said,
fit.
Yeah, sabi ko, that's interesting. Pakipot pa. That's interesting. But long story short, I joined. And that company became DDLS Aboitiz. That's a mouthful. But the vision back then, and this was the 100-year anniversary of the Aboitiz Group.
Wow.
They made 2 investments. The first one was in AIM to start the Masters of Entrepreneurship and Masters of Data Science program.
Yep.
That was the first investment. Of course, it's very elitist kasi you need a lot of money, and of course you need recommendations, and the bar to enter AIM is quite high. So I admire people who have studied in AIM. The other investment was my shop, DDLS Aboitiz.
Love it.
Who is now Lumify. And the vision back then was to provide consulting and short certification courses to IT professionals. The problem statement was this. We have an abundance of technology coming in. We have an abundance of processes that are derived from all these standards. But we're still experiencing that brain drain. A lot of certified IT professionals are going abroad. So we need to make sure that the supply is there. So that was the thing. So I did that for 3 years.
Nice.
Until I was hired by Advanced AI.
Oh, we will talk about all of that. And we will also do a deep dive a little bit on DDLS, because anything that has a dynamic of supply and demand is always, if it's a two-sided market and you're trying to create supply, is not an easy thing to build, because it's literally ecosystem building. We'll talk about that more after the break. Hey, hustlers, how many apps are you using at work these days? 5? 10? 20? Let's face it, there are chat apps for internal communication and emails for external. Cloud Drive for docs and wikis, calendars and video conferencing, spreadsheets and project management software, and probably yet another tool to connect them all. It is a mess. And if you're collaborating with cross-border colleagues, partners, or suppliers, it gets even more complicated. And don't you find it disruptive when your personal and business messages get mixed up? And if this sounds painfully familiar, switch to Lark, the leading super app for work designed to increase your team's productivity by 10x at an unbelievable fraction of the cost. With Lark, manage projects, chat with your team, build a knowledge base with wikis, and automate workflows such as approvals without code effortlessly from one app. No switching or integration needed. Join fast-growing companies in over 125 countries, including Xiaomi, Glint, and the Philippines' very own Kumu and Mama Luz, who trust Lark as their workplace super app. I've started using Lark myself for our pressure washing business service, Papa Pressure, and I'm totally loving it. Want to see how Lark can revolutionize your business? Click the link in the description or download Lark for free at larksuite.com. That's larksuite.com, the productivity super app every business needs. And we're back from the break. We are still with Mike Calma, who then told us the amazing origin story of how he started out his career up until how he started going back into the startup ecosystem in such a hard thing to do when the Aboitiz family was very, very, very particular. Probably more intense than the Japanese in what type of risks they only take, right? Imagine the only investments that they do was AIM and your shop. Woo! That's intensive. And then that's intense. I want to now understand. So DDLS, walk me through, again, you mentioned the product statement, but the problem statement, but it's such a big problem that I don't think you're going to be able to solve it in just one attack. It is a multi-phase thing. What are the first things you had to do there?
Of course, on the tactical side, I needed to get people in. And for context, this was early to mid 2019.
Yep. So pre-pandemic.
Pre-pandemic. Little did we know that a year after, less than a year after, the world would change. So tactical things first. I needed to get a team in place. Yep. I needed to build a campus. And this is where the interesting thing comes in, because we had to really invest in that campus, make sure it is fitted with the most high-tech computers and teaching aids that you have for that face-to-face interaction. That's synchronous. How we want to differentiate it. Synchronous. Yes. And definitely get the operations in place. So people, technology, and process. I needed to get that in place. And of course, after all of those things are done, not after, but in parallel, you need to be pre-selling already.
Of course.
First thing you need to be pre-selling. So, I mean, we were, again, blessed that after a few months of operations, we started already our classes, even before the campus was built. We're not waiting. We're not holding our breaths for that. So it was, I wouldn't say smooth sailing, but smoother than the storm that was about to come.
The storm.
So there. Few months until end of 2019, I was quite happy and excited that we were gaining traction. Also getting revenue in, aligned with what we have planned. But the pandemic struck early in 2020. And I want to go back to that campus because, it's not cheap, right?
No.
To fit out a whole campus. We were in BGC. And we had to pivot really quickly. All of a sudden, we had an asset that is not revenue generating anymore. And the revenue coming in should not stop.
Correct.
So we had to pivot and rely on two things. First one is synchronous online learning. we still have those very competent instructors to hold the classes online, which also has some challenges.
Yep.
And we lifted and shifted from our Australian counterparts two things. The first one is an asynchronous learning platform. LMS. And the other one is synchronous learning coming from Australian instructors. Oh. So what was very interesting at the time was that we had a truly international online class in that we had an instructor from Australia teaching both Australian and Filipino students. And what gives me pride is that also our Filipino instructors here are teaching a similar cohort, an international cohort. So I think that gave us a real sense of achievement during the pandemic na, kaya pala natin. We thought the world was going to end.
Whenever I bring out the pandemic, it's like, oh my God, you're bringing me a dark part of my life. But again, I'm just happy we're back open now. But before we talk about advanced AI, I want to do one more zoom in on DDLS. So this is, in a way, again, it's entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship in nature. But at least you have the backing of Aboitiz. But the hustle and the stakes are still very 0 to 1 founder. I want to now understand couple things, Mike. How did that change in terms of like leadership, and what are the new things that you thought you're good at that, again, when you go 0 to 1, that doesn't apply and you had to unlearn and relearn again?
One thing that comes to mind is the weekly cash flow statements that we needed to generate, right? We only have a very limited runway. Of course, understandably, the investors would be, they would tighten their belts because they're not our only, we are not their only problem, right? They have other problems in diversified industries. So doon nahasa yung cash flow management.
Nice.
Right? We really need to deep dive into cash flow management, ensure that there is more money coming in than more money coming out. I would have thought that in peacetime, I wouldn't.
Ben Horowitz is proud of you. Okay.
Exactly. Yun, wartime. So it was both a curse. I felt like it was a curse at the time, but like you said, hindsight is 2020. Blessing pala.
Yes.
Blessing pala. I was really tested then in terms of the tactical management, conserving cash, and finding ways to generate revenue.
No, and again, I think you've already had that in the bag. It was just dormant for a while because you started out as a 0 to 1 founder anyway. Yeah, you just had to like, that gene is going to be reactivated again to really make sure that's good. But in terms of leadership, was there new things that you then had to dig into and add into what you already had an amazing skill stack?
Absolutely. I think the pandemic really tested our crisis management. And I think the first thing in crisis management is acknowledging that the world is going to shit. Right? You can't sugarcoat it. Sugarcoat it. And I think that's where the resilience of the team comes in, because you have to tell it as it is. Sometimes you have to paint a worse picture so that there's a sense of urgency.
Got it.
Right? So on one hand, you will have that empathy, but on the other hand, you need to have that grit, strength, sometimes even ruthlessness, because if not, we're going to die. The company's going to die. And people were literally dying at that time. So I wouldn't put it into one framework. Sometimes you have to just take it one day at a time, be grateful for what you have, and continue learning.
Yep. Okay. Now, again, this is such an amazing thing that in hindsight, I think this is the type of thing that you'd stay more than 7 years again. But here we go. Somebody comes knocking. January 2022. what's advanced? Is advanced when in 2022 the same advance at what we're about to talk now, or what was this opportunity and why did you decide to join them?
In 2022, Advance was already in Series D. They already secured Series D.
Wow.
Yeah. So the last funding round was late in 2021, about 400 million. It's nagulat nga ako sa scale eh. And I haven't heard of, to be
exactly.
honest.
I was like, what?
I have never heard of Advanced Intelligence Group or Advanced AI.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, this is very interesting. And the investment came from names such as Warburg Pincus, Vision Fund 2 of SoftBank, and a lot of some Singaporean VCs as well as Chinese VCs.
Wow.
So okay, this is very interesting. Again, I did my due diligence. So that was the context back then. And the mission was, okay, we've grown well in Indonesia. We want to replicate that in the Philippines. This was early 2020.
Yes. Okay.
So long story short, I said game.
Okay. No, and but, my God, that's an amazing thing. Because first of all, the grand prize in Southeast Asia is always Indo.
Mm-hmm.
If you're able to do it in Indo, there's nowhere else to go unless you really want to make it super difficult for you and make the language barrier be your enemy. Vietnam or Philippines.
Yes.
And the easy path always is the Philippines because English, so on and so forth. We all know what that is. But that's such a big act to follow. Okay, they were successful in Indo and I need you to replicate or probably even exceed what that is in the Philippines. What was the mission back then and that made you say yes?
Well, exactly that, no. But I had no illusion that the Philippines will go up to a scale immediately. First, Indonesia had a more mature fintech scene, number one. Number two, they have a larger population. 3 times.
3x
more than
Philippines.
Ours.
Mm-hmm.
3x. So, back then, I said, okay, I mean, there's still a growth story to be written here.
For sure.
So that very heavy challenge made me say yes. And nice. I saw their growth trajectory historically, and I was challenged by it. So at the time, I was I was 40. I'm 43 now, so almost 2 years.
You don't look like you're 43, I swear. Bro, I thought we were the same. Or maybe it's because I aged 10 years in the past 2 years. So, oh my God. Katinko is my best friend. Okay, and all these...
mine also. Mine also. We have a common best friend.
There you go. Very addictive. Okay, there you go. No, but it's really, really interesting what this is. And not a lot of people get presented with these opportunities. Last question before we take our last break. Was there a hint of like, shit, this is so big? I mean, you've always eclipsed all these opportunities, but did you also still feel, imposter syndrome? Like, hello, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, that's crazy. How did you get over that?
Every day, I feel that every day because technology is improving so fast.
Yeah.
Right. That you really have to keep yourself updated. Right.
Yeah.
And that's one end of the solution. But the other end would be to keep yourself really close to the customer, so you see their changing preferences.
Got it.
And so I think those are the double-sided or two sides of the coin, if you like, in terms of solving that problem. And the imposter syndrome, I think, is a natural defense for us, so that we still have that sense of urgency. We have that inclination towards lifelong learning and discipline. And because if we lose that imposter syndrome, I know it all, then it turns out you won't be able to adapt. You won't be able to survive as a professional.
Definitely. And that's going to be the beginning and the end, because you don't feel like you still have that you still have something to prove. And being an imposter in every single room every time allows you to have that fight or flight response. Exactly. And obviously, a lot of us, we decide to fight, but deep inside, like, holy shit, why am I here?
Another way of looking at it from the other side. If you feel that you're the smartest person in the room, you are in the wrong room. I heard that somewhere. Agree. I forget from where or who.
Yeah, but I totally agree. And yeah, you have to be in those situations where you can still learn. And imposter syndrome is always a good sign that there's much, much more to be learned. Now let's take our last break. And when we come back, we'll now do a deep dive on advanced AI and how you guys built this over the past couple of years here in the Philippines. But let's talk about that more after the break. Hey hustlers, are you a busy entrepreneur juggling a ton of tasks while trying to keep your finances in check? Thinking of raising money from investors or lenders but have no idea how to start? Well, you are not alone. Managing business finances is tough. But don't worry, I got something for you. Introducing One CFO, the leading fractional CFO service and technology provider for SMEs, startups, and scale-ups in the Philippines. Whether you need help with financial management, fundraising strategy, or scaling up operations, their team of top-tier CFOs and their game-changing CFO tech platform have got you covered. And they're legit because I've heard about them from a lot of YC startups actually that got founded in the Philippines, because they've helped a ton of VC-backed startups, scale-ups, and some of the best SMEs in the country reach new heights. One CFO is your strategic financial partner, providing the insights, guidance, and the tools you need to make smarter decisions and drive growth. Plus, they offer personalized support tailored to what your business needs, no matter the size. And what's the best part? It won't break the bank. One CFO services are affordable and accessible to businesses of all sizes. So if you're ready to level up your business and finances, what are you waiting for? Schedule a free CFO consultation with One CFO. Visit onecfoph.co today. That's onecfoph.co today to get your free CFO consultation. And we're back from the break. We are still with Mike Calma-Dentodas. Amazing job he's done. And now he is here with a bit of imposter syndrome, trying to start advanced AI with such high stakes. So, Jan 2022, you're almost 3 years in now, almost. But what did you guys do and what was the mission now? Because again, was it an AI play at that point or not yet?
Well, I think at the very core of identity risk management and credit risk management is AI and data science. Yeah. So at the very onset, that was the foundational technology that we were using to deliver the two services. Back then, we were really cognizant of several challenges in the Philippines, which is why in the area of identity risk management, we know that there are so many IDs in the Philippines that are honored by financial institutions. So that presents a very unique problem. If we go back to the Indonesia example, Indonesia already has a national ID. And not only an ID, but an identity verification system that is housed by the government. We call it Dukcapil. Now, the Philippines is catching up. Of course, here, we already have PhilSys, right? But PhilSys, I really admire the vision and the competence of the team doing that. But the fact remains that not all are using the national ID, and the financial institutions are still mandated to honor the 20, if I recall correctly, 20 identification cards. You know what? Even in the most extreme case, you have a farmer going to a financial institution, zero ID. All they have is a piece of paper from their barangay captain, called the barangay certificate. So that is the difficulty of our financial institutions. So what we provide at the very core is making sure, number one, for the AI to view the ID and see that it is not a fake. An ID coming from Recto, which is, Recto is a center of excellence in terms of ID forgery worldwide.
Worldwide? I thought it was just here.
No, worldwide. It could, at the early iterations, it could really fool a lot of computer vision systems that ID was indeed legit.
Wow.
So that was the first one.
Galing.
So,
but in the wrong ways.
Exactly. In the wrong ways. Yeah. So, I mean, that is one of the solutions. Of course, you also have the IDOCR that once, the ID is legit, you get all the information so that the customer journey is more convenient. You don't have to type in your name, other details, etc. And then finally, you have the liveness check. And liveness check is very interesting in that we already have deep fakes now, right?
Yep.
So there was a time that these deep fakes, and this was done by organized crime.
Yep.
Deep fakes were used to game the liveness checks. So a lot of improvement has been done to ensure that the liveness checks are better right now. They won't ask you to do the motion challenges anymore.
No.
Take your eyes, turn your head, things like that. They will just tell you to bring the camera farther or closer. And the reflection of your face against the light will tell the AI that, hey, this is really a live person. And let me check if this is really Ronster by comparing the live selfie versus his valid ID, the picture in the valid.
Grabe. That's amazing. Now, wait, I want to do zoom in on this because, again, one of the also most annoying things with a lot of the fintech companies that started out here, especially during the pandemic, because that's when the boom happened. Oh my God, the KYC was so like, why do I have to prove so many things that I can click a traffic light, that I can I can figure out a bike, and there's so many things to prove. But if you are already doing this with AI, you simplify the process so that you can actually deliver the value to that person who's eligible to actually use it. Because every single loop that you have to go through, you lose so many people that they just give up.
For sure. Well, there's always a trade, not a trade-off, but I don't want to call it a trade-off because there's security as well as customer convenience.
Yeah.
Ideally, it should go hand in hand. But if there are constraints in resources, it becomes a trade-off. After all, Ronster, the Philippines is the budol capital of the world. So
not even close.
Themselves. But at the same time, you don't want pissed off consumers.
Correct.
Yeah, so those are the twin objectives that we're continually trying to solve in the area of identity risk management.
Now, okay, what else? So this is very, very straightforward, and every startup needs this, honestly. Every business that's customer facing, that has B2C compliance, you need to de-risk yourself and also not deploy a shit ton of resources trying to hire an army of people who will manually do this and make the customer wait 24 hours just to tell them you lack one more document. What are the early adopters of this when you brought this into the Philippines?
Well, our initial thesis was that, okay, let's go for large enterprise customers. Right? Large enterprise customers. Well, to a certain extent, we're able to engage with them and create business. But we really found that the early adopters were medium and small. People who really wanted, or companies who really wanted to move fast and really make an impact, grow fast. So if I may give an example, one of our customers is Skyro. If you heard of Skyro, they're the POS loans. Meaning, if you go to an appliance or store selling cell phones, you'll see them there. And the value they provide is that you could buy the equipment in terms of installment. So if you don't have the credit card, you don't have
BNPL.
To buy it. In a way, yes. BNPL. Dahil installment yung bayaran. So, I mean, there were our first partners way back in 2020. And now they've grown so big, right? They're doing 5,000 to 6,000, maybe even 7,000 transactions per day.
What?
Yeah, so they are one of the companies that have really scaled, and we are blessed with that kind of partnership. And it gives us satisfaction that, hey, we're able to make sure that they are not boodled, and the customer is protected as well.
Correct.
Because if there is an increase in boodle, high non-performing loans, guess who pays for it?
Patay.
It's the valid customers.
Correct. Your interests are going to be higher because they need to recover that default that they got. That's amazing. Now, how does it work from a product standpoint? Just now, again, let's just call it what it is. I saw it in the news. The one that I talked about, you just raised $4 million in funding to create a credit bureau.
Yes.
What is this a new product? What is this?
It's gonna be a new brand. We're gonna call it Advanced CBP.
Okay.
Credit Bureau Philippines.
Okay.
Yeah, so
why do we need to create a new brand? Because there's TransUnion, there's these other guys, and weird. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So you have the incumbents, and I think they're doing a really good job.
Okay.
But the fact remains that there's still a lot of unbanked and underbanked.
True.
Primarily because we checked already the identity thing. Now it's the credit. Daming thin files, right? So the vision of the CIC, our regulator, the Credit Information Corporation, is to open the playing field for new players who will focus on the underbanked and unbanked. So this is what many would see as a higher risk portfolio.
For sure.
And it is from certain angles, but it's so large that it cannot be ignored. So we came in with that, with Advanced CBP. Now, this completes the whole customer life cycle, right? When you onboard the customer, when they transact with you, identity risk management. When they need to borrow, this is where the credit bureau will come in. And the credit bureau will combine the data from the CIC on their loans, etc., and their payment history, etc., and combine it with alternative data. What is alternative data? So alternative data is coming from telco. So we have very high telco penetration. You're going to see that Amay Calma has been spending this much in his cell phone load. And
buying Disney Plus, Viva Max.
What's Viva Max, by the way?
I don't know.
Okay. Maybe a friend told you.
Yeah, maybe other bros that will incriminate themselves, not us.
I don't know with these guys. So long story short, you thicken the file with this data, and you give more opportunities for people to borrow at a fair rate. Because what it provides the financial institution is a chance to do risk-based pricing. That is one of the things that I really had to understand over the years that I was in Advanced AI serving these financial institutions.
Makes sense. I love it. So now you really close the loop because again, KYC. But at the end of the day, you KYC, but they struggle still another loop to get the financial product where it's a loan, a payment, whatever, because most of them, and you're right, there's so many people right now. Just look at all the digital banks that have sponsored HustleShare, have been on HustleShare. Their ultimate goal, and the reason why there's so many of them, is because their ultimate utopian goal is they want to bank the unbanked. And the unbanked are the riskiest of risky here right now. Because these are the Gen Z who doesn't have anything, or again, the farmer that only has nothing, who had never had access to financial services. But if it and when they already passed the KYC, because the first step has stopped, when they're ready to do that, nako, good luck. What's your basis, right?
Yes.
And this is where it closes the loop. This is super important.
That's right. Another nuance to the market. And this is just perhaps dumbing it down. But we observed that there are two subsegments. First is the urban tech savvy, which aligns with our macro statistics, where you have typical Filipino is 26 years old, spends several hours on the internet, is very tech savvy, English speaking.
Yeah.
Okay, that reflects in the macro. But the real ones that need help are the rural tech challenged. Your typical, and this goes back to the Bataan story, your typical consumer that, yes, they have a cell phone. But the thing is, mabagal ang internet dun sa Bataan.
Yep.
Number two, I don't really trust this technology. They're a bit older, right? And we saw this in the cooperative space. Our initial market segment was then, explore natin itong mga cooperative. And that's when we realized that the average cooperative member is around 40 years old. Hindi marunong mag-computer. Okay, it was an oh shit moment. How do we use our eKYC here?
You have to really make it super more dumbed down, because those people will be like, anak, do it nga for me. That's what they're gonna do.
That's what happened. You will see a lot of financial institutions right now gaining traction because they have an agent who is assisting.
It's the anak.
Yes, it's the anak. Anak is the secret. So you see this in agent banking. When you do POS loans, these are the agents that help you, assist you using their phone to help you go through the KYC and perhaps even the credit score.
Man, I can already name in like a couple of startups top of mind that they're present at the sari-sari store level.
Yes.
And they could easily benefit by adding a microloan mechanism on where they have, because they have one thing they also have the data that you need. How much they buy, blah, 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 the POS, blah, blah, blah. They're even your usage data on how much they create digital products or brick and mortar, what they buy. And now imagine if they can be able to do not just KYC, but also risk assessment. What if you can do a e-lista? Na, okay, you want Pancit Canton? Okay, I'll give you e-lista. Fine, I'll look at your your thing, but there's be interest when you buy it. It's not the lista. But it's literally de-risking yourself, because when you make that default, you at least have an ability to really see, using AI, these things. And there's so many use cases. Oh my God.
For sure.
Amazing.
For sure. And by gathering all this data, you get unique insights. Okay, they default because of so-and-so.
Yeah.
Like, also, okay, yung itsura ng ganitong tao, magde-default yan.
Bigotilyo, kalbo. There you go.
Yeah, magde-default yan. Right. So, a lot of things that we have yet to discover. All we're providing is the foundational technology for all these fintechs to thrive in our environment.
Now, I'm thinking as a startup founder locally here, right? Because dude, if you boodled me, if I was fintech, and I'm not fintech, unfortunately, I don't need all of these for now with our product. How do I use it? Is this an API? What's the cost implications like? Because one thing about Hustle Shares, a lot of people, especially in the startup ecosystem, listen to this. So what's that like?
Well, we could be consumed several ways. And you mentioned it. It's an API. You just call that API when you integrate into your workflow. Right? So that's the very basic. Of course, we could also provide you a platform. If you don't like to program all of those things, you could just do drag and drop, things like that.
Nice.
Right. So it's at the very core, it's consumed as an API, the eKYC. Okay. The credit scoring or credit risk management, on the other hand, is also consumed as an API. But we do realize that there are institutions that don't have yet that skill.
They're not ready yet.
Not ready. So we also could deliver the credit bureau services to them through a portal to download the report there or whatever. Ooh. So think of a rural bank, for example.
Yeah.
Have an IT team, and they want to lend to my Calma in the province. Then just download my report. So we really want to make it accessible in that sense. Right, giving the customer options on how they want to consume our services.
Heck, even a sizable, not a loan shark, like a proper who loans a person that does that as a living. Because that's one thing. The default rate for those people that loan, that they say are liquid, paluwagan type, but in a
Right.
and especially in the rural provinces, this is what they need. So they actually have basis, and it's not like, kumare ni ano yan eh.
Yes, yes.
You can trust them. Wow.
So I think there are two metrics that we look at. General lang. In the identity risk management space, we look at customer acquisition cost. Right?
Yep.
To make sure that, okay, acquiring this customer and knowing their lifetime value, sulit ba yung pricing na ganito? And so it becomes cheaper when you have more volume. And it also follows that in the credit risk management space, we look at the cost of underwriting. Kung ang uutangin lang naman ni Mike 100 pesos, then you spend 50 pesos to underwrite, hindi sulit.
Yes.
So
sense.
also that's our pricing principle. It needs to make sense for the startups.
Mm-hmm. And what's the sweet spot there? Is there like a per transaction fee? What does it look like for both products on the KYC and the credit bureau?
Yeah, could be per transaction fee. Okay. Could be per transaction fee. And of course, if the volume is higher, we get better unit economics and we share the savings.
Got it.
Right. So a lot of startups I work with, as like Skyro, for instance, right? We started, i-3-month demo muna natin. Then pwede nating gawin na, okay, as you grow your volume, this is how we will share the economies of scale. So it's really a collaborative process because for us, we also want that fintech to grow, not really to burden them with the costs. Because we're also a startup ourselves. Yeah. And we benefit when they have that scale together.
And it's super hard to build this in-house. If this is a whole new startup on its own, if you're thinking like, I'll just build that in-house, good luck, dude. It's going to be...
Right.
This is there's some APIs to do it, but to get it at this level, very, very hard. So that's amazing. Now, again, for those people that are budoled like me, like you, I'm sold. The only difference is I don't have a fintech facing thing, and what I sell now are series with our new product Serie FM. Where do they go and how do they do that? How do they start working and start using Advanced AI's products?
Well, very simple. They just reach out to me and or my teammates. Then we could hook them up. It's gonna be a collaborative process, right? You're gonna understand their business first, right? And see, with your kind of business, these are the services that you could use. That's one end. It's really big. But for example, we can easy solution. We have packages already.
Yeah.
T-shirt sizing, right? So you want to start you have the bundles already, and then you just consume it from there.
Correct. Yeah. So even this up and coming startups that have traction and all that can afford it.
Of course.
Democratizing the whole thing. Because if this is just enterprise, they kawawa, the startups.
Of course. Yeah.
And again, the proper example is that Skyro example that they started small and now you grew together exponentially.
For sure. And of course, hats off to the Skyro team who grew exponentially.
That's amazing. Before I let you go, again, Mike, I want to understand what's next. What are you guys gonna be working on in the next coming years? And you're entering year 3 and now have 2 amazing products to enter to offer the Philippine ecosystem. What's next for you guys?
Well, 2 things. First one, the race towards securing identities is a never-ending one. It's an arms race. Yep. People or criminals will find ways to do that. So we want to be ahead of the curve using AI so that it could be enforced at scale.
Correct.
And on the other product line, which is credit risk management, it's really improving 2 things. Number one is our data sources. The more data we have, alternative data, the better credit score we could generate.
Yep.
And the more intelligent our AI is, that comes through training and improvement of algorithms, the more insights you get from the market, the more it will give a fairer assessment.
Yep.
So those are the things, not too sexy, but in the Philippines, we need to be effective first before sexy.
No, and that is super. Again, the Budol will always be there because if Recto can thrive and do that, there cybercrime will always be there, and you want to protect not just your startup, but also your consumers from all of this. Again, thank you very much, Mike. What an amazing episode. I'm glad we finally got you here. But before I let you go, follow us on whatever podcast you're listening to, whether Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other podcast app. And if we did say some jargon, it's going to be the show notes on hustleshare.com. And if you also want to support HustleShare and doing content like this, please do subscribe at premium.hustleshare.com. Again, Mike, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ronster. Happy to be here and enjoyed talking to you.
Likewise, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.